Tony McKeely are off to North Carolina and we're hopefully on the other side of Flagstaff. Here's the reality no one in Sister Wives production is articulating out loud. Kody and Robyn weren't portrayed as heroes this season. They were served up as the punchline. It appears this season's purported main characters, Kody and Robyn Brown, have ultimately gotten what they always dreamed, center stage. Bad luck for them, because the glare is not as kind as the fluorescent lighting in a hospital corridor. The current theory manufacturing let Kody and Robyn know they would be the center of attention this season, without adding that the story would be a slow-motion train wreck with their delusion and dysfunction. The editing tells it all. In between the cringeworthy efforts to position them as good parents and the wistful flashbacks of Logan actually raising the family, we are given a masterclass in contrast. One moment, Robyn is wandering across Coyote Pass wearing that disastrous hat. And the next, we remember who the real backbone of the family always was, and it wasn't her or her husband's lumberjack costume drama. The production pivot is clear. The tone is more acerbic, the irony thicker, and the patience thinner. Is Kody and Robyn's PR handler whispering redemption arc in their ears? How else did Kody happen into special forces, for goodness sake? Was that a network invite or only another rearguard action to try to make his 15 minutes last longer before the final fade out? In the meantime, the audience suffers through the stomach-churning sight of Robyn buying houses bought naturally with the family kitty that somehow evaporated after the first wives discovered their freedom. Seeing her dress up as the tragic martyr amidst accoutrements of ill-gotten gains is all the heartfelt sincerity of a soap opera bad girl audition. The actual stars of Sister Wives have always been the women who departed. Janelle, Mary, and Christine and the kids represent what viewers really listen for: growth, strength, and true love. Their relationships are in beautiful contrast to Kody and Robyn's continuous pity procession. Kody, always the self-styled hero, still appears as certain the show is about him and his charm, a fantasy as long-lived as the Coyote Pass pond, which happens to have roughly the same vibrancy. His on-screen presence is now comprised largely of interminable monologues and shallow rationalizations, while the really compelling tales are those of the wives and their older children forging new paths. As the show stumbles toward what seems an inevitable end, all anyone can hope for is one final act. Karmic retribution for Kody and Robyn Brown. Best of all, the series finale should be a triumphant celebration of the radiant metamorphosis of the original wives, with the self-made king and his queen of tears then confronting their kingdom of debt and deception. And already, audiences have started voting with their remotes, bypassing every Kody and Robyn episode in favor of literally anything else. Why should they care, though? The checks keep clearing? Kody will gladly play the fool for a check, hanging on to every bit of screen time that can be used to pay another loan. Off-camera, Robyn may try to reinvent herself as a wrongly accused martyr, the reluctant favorite victimized by both husband and church. Look for a memoir full of melodrama, short on responsibility. No one cares about Kody and Robyn anymore, anyway. Their plotline is as predictable as the emotional manipulation from last season. The show's real heart lies in the flashbacks, the scenes when Logan, and not Kody, was what family leadership was about. For while Kody was playing fatherhood for the cameras, Logan lived it every day. And that, ironically, is something that Kody will never be able to edit her way out of. She didn't fail at polygamy. She managed to monopolize Kody. Sister Wives, Season 11, Episode 2 is a masterclass in hindsight so acute, it's practically clairvoyant. In the now infamous couch scene, Kody and Robyn are seated beside each other, tears streaming, apologies spoken. Then Robyn utters one of the most unflinchingly self-aware lines ever spoken in the show. The success of a plural family hinges on wives' relationships. If we can't make it work, nothing works. Back then it sounded profound, maybe even noble. Looking back, it was a whispered admission of what was to occur. Robyn knew with blinding recognition that the delicate balance of plural marriage depended not upon the husband's leadership, but upon the women's capacity to get along. And yet, as those relationships unraveled, her bond with Kody grew stronger. That night on the couch suddenly seems to be the precise moment that she knew she didn't need the other wives anymore. She could define success in her own terms. One where the plural aspect of the marriage silently fell away. Her consciousness was never the problem. The trouble was that she utilized it. Instead of building up the collective, she used her knowledge to defend her bond with Kody even if it meant sacrificing all the others. Robyn's actions right from the start indicated this was an inevitable destiny. She never fully became part of the prevailing family setup. Even in courtship, she pulled Kody away from his other wives. At times of exceptional insensitivity, such as when Christine was in labor and Robyn still insisted on Kody being there for one final goodbye kiss, she would later pretend not to know where he was, saying she did not know where Kody was either, while he spent his evenings at her place. Empathy towards the other wives or children was never her best quality. Ironically, the same philosophy Robyn had once espoused about sisterhood being the cornerstone of plural marriage was undone by her own failure to live it. A polygamous home also needs independence to succeed. Every wife needs to be able to function in her own sphere without constant male supervision. Robyn, however, could never be without Kody's ubiquitous attention. Her dependence made her his favorite and his liability. Of course, she's not entirely to blame. Kody's leadership style fed on tension. A polygamous husband deeply committed to the cause would see that there was fairness among wives and kids as well, encouraging cooperation instead of mistrust. But Kody, being paranoid, wanted his wives in separate corners from each other. Less cooperation, less chance of revolt. It is not surprising that the system collapsed in his care. The Browns' doctrine that polygamy was only effective if all the wives harmonized was never divine revelation. It was unity masquerading as control. It dumped the responsibility of success on the shoulders of the women while absolving Kody of responsibility. And then Robyn, her motivations an enduring enigma. If she ever really wanted plural marriage, undermining it for the sake of being Kody's one and only fixation is nonsensical. There's no favorite when you're the last one standing. But if she never wanted polygamy, period, then the marriage was always transactional to begin with. A ticket to status, money, and a strategically managed public persona. Either way, that couch scene is the turning point. With one line and one tearful admission, Robyn Brown told us everything we needed to know. Not the topic of plural marriage's success, but the subtle skill of pulling it apart. Kody Brown is not incompetent at communication. He's a master manipulator. The silence is the tactic. At this point, seeing the Browns struggle with adult issues feels less like seeing a family business meeting and more like being stuck in a middle school group project that went terribly awry. The Coyote Pass fiasco, with Kody not calling Mary and only wanting to send messages through Janelle, sums up perfectly their group failure to act like adults. 5 middle-aged adults can't coordinate a simple email chain. Not an emotional argument, not a family therapy session, just an email thread regarding property news. That's just too advanced of an idea, apparently. Kody's avoidance of clear communication is not incompetence. It's a tactic. If he can't dictate the story, he dictates the chaos. The man has long survived on chaos. Keeping everyone in a state of disorientation ensures that he gets to be the center of gravity for their dysfunction. Not sending an email guarantees no paper trail, no responsibility, and limitless ways to clear things up later with whatever yarn serves him best. It's not only immaturity. It's aloofness masquerading as manipulation. Even if there were an email exchange, Kody would probably only reply to Janelle, having her pass messages along to Mary like some begrudging messenger in a conflict he instigated. And besides, the less face-to-face interaction between the ex-wives, the better it is for him to distort words and assign fault. This has nothing to do with logistics. It's leverage. Coyote Pass was meant to be his victory lap, not something he has to share and apportion equally. The moment Mary had the temerity to request an audit, you could practically see him short-circuiting, looking for an exit strategy to dissuade her. Pinning it on her as scheming was classic projection. Kody simply doesn't like it when other people get to read the fine print on his schemes. And naturally, there's the standard grifter rulebook. Never commit anything to paper. If it doesn't appear on paper, it never occurred. Foregoing paperwork helps him to gaslight, deny, and rewrite history as necessary. It also keeps his go-to strategy, pitting wife against wife, well and alive. It's hard to plant distrust when everyone's on the same email chain trading information. What is all the more ridiculous about all of this is the selective closeness of it all. Kody can cry on Mary's shoulder vowing to give her away at her next wedding, but cannot be bothered to text regarding selling land. The emotional drama is flowing freely. The functional communication is absent. And then there is the legal absurdity. Both Mary and Janelle have hired attorneys, but somehow they're still negotiating with Kody on a personal basis. Anybody with even a minor understanding of real estate or with common sense knows this needs to be done through lawyers. But naturally, clarity and process are the bane of Kody Brown. The more complicated the negotiations are, the better he can keep up the illusion of control. Others say it's not fair to label the original wives stunted when they're dealing with a master manipulator. And they are correct. These women have attempted to use email and direct communication. Last season demonstrated they receive silence or stonewalling back in response. Robyn won't play along at all, especially not in the group atmosphere after the notoriety of the gift exchange text drama. And Kody, he is never going to reply all. He feeds on ambiguity and word confusion, telling a different lie to each individual so no one has any idea what is real. It is part of the same old worn-out routine. Kody and Robyn stall each choice until all the rest are worn out enough to surrender. That is not poor communication. It is intentional wear down. They have named him the Kody roller coaster for a reason. He pulls all of us through somber emotional circles before arriving inevitably at the most basic response he might have provided months ago. But then again, that would not be almost as fun for him, at least. They constructed their dream home upon the remains of their family and still do not get why it is hollow. In their desperation to triumph in the family meltdown, Kody and Robyn Brown have succeeded in acquiring exactly what they are worth. An empty kingdom founded on deceit, self-delusion, and an appalling lack of self-awareness. Kody, eternally impressed by his own intelligence, smugly cleaned out the family accounts to finance assets. A blatant move to see to it that the original 3 wives received nothing. Robyn, in turn, went on her own spending spree, splurging recklessly during the pandemic as if shopping could purchase her an attitude. The two of them dragged their feet, bewildered, and mangled the Coyote Pass debacle into a knot that probably led them to believe Janelle and Mary would just give up. It nearly worked for a while. Kody used his name on all the papers to become qualified for the new home, thinking he'd outwitted all of them. But what did they really get? Things. Costly, goofy, joyless things. Their house, a gaudily decorated monument to bad taste and fantasy, contains ghastly jewelry, ill-matched paintings, and a crushing atmosphere of despair. They possess things, but not bonding. They have walls, but no heart. Even tragedy, such as the devastating loss of Garrison, was unable to shock them into introspection. Their kingdom is founded upon loneliness, and this is not hard to see. The women they had left behind, however, have discovered what Kody and Robyn never did: peace, purpose, and true happiness. Christine started anew from scratch, discovering love, laughter, and a partner who encourages her quests instead of erasing them. She lives authentically, with her children and grandchildren around her, exuding the happiness once lacking in all Brown family gatherings. Janelle is also doing well. North Carolina has been her haven. She's enveloped in family, building her dream house without sacrifice or domination. She gets to travel, smile easily, and heal surrounded by love instead of ego. The dichotomy could not be more stark. Whereas Robyn suffocates under performative grief, Janelle radiates with unobtrusive strength. Mary, the longest to be most reluctant to leave, finally pierced through the haze of manipulation that the pandemic so clearly exposed. She escaped, if without a daring strategy, and bled into the steadying familiarity of friends and hard realities. Even with limited contacts with the children, she now finds herself among individuals who value her more than what she had to give to Kody's fragile ego. Then there is the sad comedy of Kody and Robyn's present lives. They thrive on each other's complaints, deluding themselves that they are victims of betrayal instead of masterminds of their own ruin. They gossip, they justify, and they invoke righteousness. Misery loves company, after all, and they have all they can handle. They can afford a larger house, but they can't afford a liability. They can amass possessions, but not love. Each attempt at portraying happiness rings as phony as the furnishings that surround them. Robyn is still a picture of selfishness and pretense. Kody, a self-inflated parody of masculinity who confuses domination with leadership. So when Kody laments his loneliness in that oversized McMansion, the irony writes itself. He deserves to be lonely. After all, he spent years ensuring that anyone capable of loving him would eventually have no reason left to stay. Their financial reckoning will come, as it always does, for people who mistake possessions for fulfillment. But the true cost has already been given in love lost, respect wasted, and a legacy that's become a cautionary tale. The Browns' old patriarch and his self-proclaimed soulmate have all they plotted for and nothing worthwhile to their name. Kody Brown used to care. Then Vegas came along, and that one never returned. There was a one-time version of Kody Brown who seemed to love his children intensely, even tenderly. Watching the first seasons of Sister Wives provides the jarring juxtaposition between that man and the bitter caricature now snarling through confessionals. Season 8 catches the final breath of that earlier version. When Kody and the family went to visit Maddie in college, the moment went down like a homespun family postcard. Laughter, sunshine, the forced enthusiasm of a daughter who was on her own. Seeing Maddie's almost bare fridge, Kody jumped into the RV to pick up bags of groceries for her. A little thing, but significant. The doing of a father who saw, who cared, who appeared. Somewhere along the way from that time to his recent rants on national TV, that man vanished. Maddie's crying today is understandable. She once had a father who tried. Now she has a public foe who picks apart his kids' allegiances in public. Somewhere in Vegas, Kody's nature calcified into bitterness. The change coincided with his ban from the church, a watershed moment that appeared to have deprived him of both discipline and self. After his religious cover for plural marriage dissolved, he seemed to find himself understanding he didn't actually want the other wives himself. CO only offered the reason to fall back into the cocoon of monogamy he'd always wanted. The theory that steroids or hormones were involved in this change is almost too perfect. The volatility, the eruptions of ego, the inflated bravado, it's textbook. But chemical imbalance does not account for the corrosive effect of Robyn Brown, always the whispering specter at his side. Her game has always been covert sabotage, the subtle art of poison wells. Maddie's autonomy and refusal to defer to Robyn's leadership made her a prime target. Robyn's veiled envy of Kody's fondness for Maddie resonates again in later seasons when she dismisses Aspen's straightforward discussion with her father as confrontational. It's a habit she can't break. When Robyn feels cut out, she rewrites history to penalize the competition. And don't forget Kody's new pastime of humiliating his family openly. His on-air rants against his children and ex-wives are the sort of hurt that never really scabs. Even if reconciliation eventually takes place, his open scorn has dispelled the fiction of his secret loyalty. Worse yet, his older children now observe him doing Father of the Year skits for Robyn's children, assurance that the affection he offered them was not lost, only reallocated. And as for that erstwhile touch bag of RV provisions, one would say it was performative rather than paternal. Kody might have merely taken Maddie to the market and purchased her real groceries. But receivable generosity has never been his forte. Even in his presumed gestures of concern, there was a scent of self-applause. In the end, what broke the connection between Kody and Maddie wasn't circumstance or geography. It was the insistence on loyalty at the expense of integrity. He wanted her to choose him over her mother to legitimize his fantasies, to accompany him to Flagstaff in obedient compliance. And when she didn't, he redefined her autonomy as betrayal. Kody claims to crave respect, but what he really wants is submission. The only plural thing about him now is the amount of bridges he's torched. They told us Robyn's adoption was for family harmony. What if it was really a divine power play in disguise as motherhood? The Brown family's divine goals have always carried a whiff of red tape. And Robyn's insisting Kody adopt. Her kids only made it more so. At first glance, it seemed a sentimental gesture of solidarity. In fact, it was a remarkable blend of theology, ego, and courtroom tactics. Others cite the Latter-day Saint belief in celestial families as the motivator. Under that doctrine, a family is sealed in the temple so they will be held together in the afterlife, a kind of divine family pact with renewal benefits for a lifetime. For Robyn, who was already bound to another man by her initial marriage, that constituted a cosmic logistics issue. She desired to have her children locked to the man she currently revolved around. Thus, the need for adoption, legal documents to confirm the celestial pecking order. Even Mary's emotional collapse over not wanting to tear Robyn's children away from her for time and eternity immediately makes more sense. What was so much melodrama may have been real existential fear, some kind of cosmic custody dispute of never-ending length. But the religious justification begins to crumble under examination. The AUB, Apostolic United Brethren, as the mainstream LDS church from which it broke away, values patriarchal power so highly. It's difficult to conceive a woman singularly unsealing her children from one father and remarrying to another without church intervention. And that's before even addressing the cosmic logistics. If each righteous man has his own planet in the afterlife, how do families interact? Does everyone commute from planet to go to eternal family dinner? The heavenly real estate plan falls under its own theological grounds. And then there is the less divine, more earthy explanation. Robyn's legal reasons. Her mode of moving her children from Wyoming to southern Utah, then northern Utah, and then Nevada neatly tracked with reducing access for her ex-husband. Joint custody, indeed, but each state border pushed the goalposts further back. Even if he was in arrears on child support, as she implied, visitation and paying up are two different things. If he had been inclined to contest, the courts might have viewed her repeated relocations as unlucky for him. But he wasn't. Whether due to privacy or fatigue, he dropped it, and she prevailed. By the time of the adoption, it was televised for the country, a glossy, staged moment that probably gave her children minimal control. The outcome was not simply a new family name under the law, but a public shedding of their paternal connection broadcast in the guise of unity. Ironically, despite all the religious posing, the heavenly math is not working in favor of Robyn or Kody. It all started with adultery by the church's own moral calculation. If the doctrine is correct, Kody's foreplay kisses with Robyn before he became engaged to her, when still married to 3 other women according to law, were acts of adultery. In essence, he might have lost his chance at godhood altogether. No world, nobody's kingdom eternally, just nobody but Robyn ruling. Nobody but her isolated heavenly acreage, as Kody gets to spend forever banging on the gates of heaven, denouncing he was misunderstood. So the adoption may not have been about heaven after all. Perhaps it was merely control of names, stories, and webs of allegiance. All in this world and not the next. The celestial family may sound heavenly, but for the Browns, it's merely another family court with enhanced lighting. Nothing reveals a phony leader quicker than actual pressure, and Kody Brown crumpled right away. Kody Brown reminds everyone again that it's his world. We're all just bad luck extras rolling through it. On Special Forces World's Toughest Challenge, Kody's ego became astounding. When asked to state qualification, Brianna serenely says that she's a podcaster. Kody, with all the seriousness of a man who has achieved absolutely nothing worthwhile, smirks, that's all. The irony writes itself. What are his qualifications, precisely? Marrying several women and getting them all onto the solidus of despair. When confronted with a challenge that involved rescuing a casualty, Kody's reaction was not courage but flight. His magnificent order, leave him. Let's go. This, naturally, was the very opposite of the mission's goal. The mission was to evacuate the casualty. But Kody, in a panic, manic, and spectacularly unaware, opted for cowardice as policy. It's a miracle he hasn't been officially hailed as a military mastermind for creating abandoned maneuvers. And of course, he took charge without permission because he's a man and thus in his own mind divinely appointed to command. Let's go ladies, he snapped as if sex alone made him a worthy leader. The outcome, a team meltdown, courtesy of Captain Ego. It's not an isolated event. It's a little used move in the Kody Brown playbook. Take charge, avoid responsibility, and implode under slight stress. His actions reflect on previous times of ineptness, such as during Dayton's ATV accident, where his son Hunter held everything together literally and figuratively, while Kody, the adult, did nothing. He is not a leader. That is the same person who whined over a 99-degree temperature as if he were dying. The temerity of challenging others' qualifications is comical from a guy whose resume includes reality TV star, part-time signeller, estranged father of several children, and self-styled patriarch of disorder. Podcasters, one might argue, work harder and produce more coherency in an hour than Kody accomplishes in a whole season of self-marketing. As if all that were not enough, his actions while conducting the exercise were not just ineffective. They were intrusive. As the group stormed into a building, he rested his hand on the back of the woman in front. A gesture both unnecessary and condescending. The constant need to prove dominance, physical or otherwise, seeps from every encounter. Kody's finest skill has ever been confusing arrogance with authority. Observing him disintegrate under real pressure reveals the truth long concealed beneath his bluster. He's not a leader, not a soldier, and certainly not the hero of any story except the one playing nonstop in his own head. If you caught that secondhand embarrassment too, hit subscribe before it fades.